LeVar, let's start with Michael Sam. And before I ask the question, let's hear the soundbite from his announcement on Sunday night.
I'm not afraid to tell the world who I am. I'm Michael Sam. I'm a college graduate. I'm African American, and I'm gay.
All right, at this point, everybody knows who Michael Sam is. A lot of people didn't know him before Sunday, but he was the Player of the Year defensively in the SEC, defensive end. Co-Player of the Year, excuse me. Yeah, fair point. First of all, did the announcement?
It doesn't matter. It's SEC.
Exactly. First of all, the announcement surprised you.
I mean, it's 2014. I mean, I don't get surprised by too often. I think that there's way more things out there that could happen that would be a surprise or something that throws you off. But I think a lot of people knew that moment was drawing near. What was Amadeju, I think is his name. I think he was hinting towards guys getting closer and closer to wanting to talk about those things. The reports on Kerry Rhodes at one point in time. I think it's something that it's an inevitability, or it's inevitable, I should say, that this moment was going to happen.
I would say that, I mean, I was surprised that it was a guy who was not employed by an NFL team yet, then not employed by any team yet.
So I was going to ask about the timing.
I think that Jason Collins, someone like that, sort of an established player towards the end of his career who, really doesn't have a whole lot to lose or sort of doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. And I think that, to me, I would have guessed would have been more likely, or even like a bigger star, someone who was sort of like untouchable in that way. To me, like a guy who is basically auditioning for a league and for 32 teams has a little bit more to lose and is a little bit more risky for him. And so I think that it surprised me a little bit that it was a draft prospect.
It's a lot to lose for his career, possibly, but so much to gain from being the first guy to do it.
Very courageous act, regardless.
Well, regardless of if you think it's courageous or not or whatever, it sets him. He's set for life, because whatever takes place now, there's a movie, there's all kinds, there's motivational speaking. He's like Tim Tebow in a lot of ways, even without being Tim Tebow. He didn't have to win a Heisman. He didn't have to win a national title, because coming out and being the first person to say you're gay before you even took one snap, before you were even drafted, the fact that he's an All-American, a co-defensive player in the SEC, it's almost a must that he has to get drafted. There has to be a drafting. So I think if you're looking at what he can do long term based off of that announcement, although he alienated himself because he's not an established player within the league, within a locker room, he still set him. He's a hero now. He's an overnight hero.
My question to you, Dan, let me start with you on this one, is how do you expect this announcement? You mentioned the timing that was somewhat surprising. How do you expect it to affect the draft prospects? They have them anywhere from between a third to a sixth rounder at this point.
I mean, I don't scout NFL players. I didn't know that he would have been that low to begin with, because it seems to me like a co-defensive player of the year in the SEC, regarded as the best conference in football, would have been higher to begin with.
The last 7 were first rounders.
And before any of this stuff came out, he was already a middle round kind of guy. I mean, I don't think it's outlandish to think that even, putting aside any kind of issues of like a distraction or anything like that, you are inviting a certain level of scrutiny when you bring that guy in. Just like with, like a Teo when San Diego picked him. And, there's going to be more reporters around. So I don't think that it's outlandish to think that that would be in the back of some people's heads when they're thinking, do we want this middle round prospect or another middle round prospect? But I don't think that I think ultimately GMs want to get guys that can help their teams, and presumably this guy can. And so I would assume that he will get taken around the same neighborhood.
But you don't want to bring in a force that could disrupt your team either. And I don't, to be honest with you, I don't think that it's so much him being gay in the locker room that would be the disruptive force. I think that it's everything that surrounds it. I think the media coverage of it, if anything, like you have to assume now, anything that goes wrong.
Let's add a minute so you can finish your point.
Anything that goes wrong, if he gets hurt, if he gets put on IR, if he gets cut, if he's not a starter, if he doesn't get drafted at this point, or when you did draft him, every single thing that surrounds Michael Sam at this point will be because he's gay. And whether it's fair or not, that will be a part of it. And now you have to ask yourself as a GM, as an office, is that what you want to bring in? 'Cause I think people referenced it as on the radio yesterday as a circus. You're bringing a circus to town. And you mentioned Manti Te'o. Manti Te'o was connected to a fictitious figure. So that's still based off of speculative type deals. It's not connected to him directly. Being gay is directly connected to him. And I would also offer the fact that where I think most will be okay with this taking place, I believe that what took place in Miami with Jonathan Martin and Incognito is based off of Jonathan's sexual orientation. I believe that. Now, I'm speculating, but I believe that. So I don't even know that it will be that easy, because some guys have made it. Who was it Culliver that made it very, very apparent, very clear last year before the Super Bowl that he did not want any gay guys in the locker room. So there's still that mentality that will exist within that structure in the locker room. So it turns out it will be an interesting.
And
you might be right.
The combine right around the corner. It'd be interesting to see how he does there.
You might be right, Var, but I do believe that even if all those things that you just said are true now, that 10 years from now, or some short distance in the future, it won't be like that anymore. That pretty quickly it's going to transition to where it's not.
And this is a stepping stone toward that. I totally agree.
I think a lot more people will come out because of it. Certainly, I think why not? Like nobody's really like enraged about it. I mean, it's just discussion. So I think that it may set
and
the
it's
stage
a lot
for
different.
of opportunities.
It's a lot different to be the fourth guy to come out than the first.
Sure.
So I agree with you there.